All right, welcome back in, Gary and Matt, with Jimmy. Tonight, 8 o'clock downtown Connecticut and Creighton. It is the game in the Big East, big night in the Big East, and time to get caught up on UConn with our good friend. We call him a good friend. He is in Omaha tonight, covers the Huskies as part of the beat. Joe Arruda from the Hartford Courant. Good morning, Joe. Welcome back to 1620 The Zone.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, let's talk about the. Well, you've had a heck of a run covering this program, and you get on a daily basis to follow Coach Hurley, but you also, for the last 2 years, the greatness of UConn basketball. How would you sum up from Maui to waking up this morning in Omaha the kind of season it has been covering this UConn basketball team?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, my first year covering them was 2 years ago, so I've only covered national championship seasons so far. So it's been different for sure. I think they got shocked in Maui; they were stunned. And it carried over into those games. That first overtime loss to Memphis. Obviously they shouldn't have lost to Colorado. And then the Dayton game, they just fell apart. And then the Big East, they've been struggling with injuries lately. So it's been, this is stuff that I haven't covered, at UConn yet. They've been fortunate with injuries the last couple of years that they've had so many extra pieces to fill in the gaps. And I think right now we're seeing, maybe the roster's not ready yet.
Yeah, Joe, talking about the injuries here, Liam McNeely out for a while, and then you finally get him back, and now Solo Ball and Diarra are now kind of banged up here. Has that affected the morale of the team a bit? The fact that it just seems like as soon as they get healthy, they get another bad break in that regard?
I think in a way, yes. It's tough because Diarra was meant to come off the bench. He was supposed to be in that sixth man role that he got awarded for last year. I think they thought they would get more, of the St. Mary's version of Aiden Mahaney when they brought him in, and that just hasn't happened on a consistent basis. So, I think that injury in particular has been one that's hurt them a lot recently. And Coach Hurley says, he doesn't think it's going to get very much better, soon. So, I think, at some level that's the point. And then, they've played 11 games that have been decided by 5 points or less. So for some of these returning guys like Alex Caravan and Diarra, and Samson Johnson, they haven't, been in, a season like this before. So I think that definitely has to affect him at some level.
We know that, and he looked pretty healthy. Didn't shoot it well from beyond the arc, but Liam McNeely looked like we expect him to look a little bit on Friday night. So he's got a couple of more days of being healthy to get ready for the game tonight. But as this season goes, and I think Coach Hurley reiterated that you don't crown a champion in February. There's still a lot of basketball to be played and trying to figure out, as you were alluding to, Joe, guys just kind of figuring out their role. What do you think moving forward for UConn to have success, and maybe it starts tonight, what is the ideal role for Liam McNeely in this offense?
I think, he has to be a guy that he initiates the offense. He's pretty much the only, on ball one-on-one creators that they have, that can, drive into the lane and hit those floaters and, dish out of there. So I think he really has to be the spark plug for the team. And, he brings a personality that this team has had in recent years. And he's really the only one that really possesses it on this team. Just with his fire and his passion, sort of like a Cam Spencer or an Andre Jackson.
Yeah.
A guy like brings that edge that fits with Hurley and what he does on the sideline, and goes together. So I think he's really, kind of, the most important player. I think that's kind of obvious, going forward. But yeah, I mean, his shooting is huge for letting guys get open. You've seen Caravan struggle lately. Guys are swallowing Solo Ball on the perimeter. So to have one more guy out there that can draw attention is huge.
Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was during the Marquette game. They zoomed in on the huddle, and Dan Hurley was telling his team, how are they more desperate than us? Being 4-4 in the last 8, how desperate do you think the Huskies are going to play tonight against the Creighton Blue Jays?
That's the word. I think they will be. This is a place that they've never won, and I don't, they haven't forgotten what happened last year, with that court storming, with the heckling, Hurley going back at a fan. I think there's a lot that goes into playing here, and I mean they're gonna be desperate, and it'll be interesting to see, how they can play. When they went to Marquette on the road, they played really well. And that was without Liam. And then they go back, to Connecticut and struggle with St. John's. But, it's a different defense that Creighton has. And I think, yeah, I mean, they'll be desperate.
Let's go back to the game, which Creighton walked into Gamble and stopped the 28-game win streak. And at the time, Hurley was talking about defense got to be better on the backboards. And they've been better in that area, but all of a sudden, turning the basketball over has crept up. And I know against St. John's, that style, that physicality, there's a lot of teams that are going to turn the ball over. But now, 47 turnovers in the last 2 games. What's happened in that area that they need to fix sooner than later?
Yeah, I think, part of it is playing, 2 of the best defenses in the league. Part of it is playing those defenses with Diarra hobbled. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, Dan mentioned it yesterday. He said, we're getting better on defense or getting better on the backboard, but now this issue that we've been so good at the last 3 years, has come up as a problem. And yeah, I mean, I think part of it's getting healthy. Part of it's just guys being confident and not passing up shots. We've seen a lot of, Caravan passing up shots and things like that. So I think that's really what the focus will be, moving forward, because UConn's offense has been, and it still is, even with all their struggles, one of the most efficient offenses in the country. But yeah, they've got to figure out what they're going to do at point guard. That's the biggest thing. And Amon Noel, the freshman, he should be ready to go today. We'll see how many minutes that is. And we'll see what kind of role Aiden Mahaney can play.
So are you expecting maybe a different style of offense coming from the Huskies because Diarra, who is by far the leading assist getter right now for UConn, I mean, he's going to be hobbled. He's going to have a knee injury basically for the rest of the year. Are you anticipating a kind of a bit of a new look from them on offense, or is it going to kind of them just trying to do the same thing with different pieces?
I think at times, yes. I think, they've considered, he mentioned it yesterday. It doesn't seem like it will happen tonight, but potentially moving McNeely over and just using a positionless lineup without a point guard. Solo Ball hasn't really been a primary ball handler this year. I think McNeely can. I think Caravan, they can all facilitate in their own ways. But yeah, I think they're going to try to do what they've done with Diarra and just see how long they can push him. And they hope that, Noel can come in and help out in that area, and Mahaney as well, like I said. But yeah, I think we're probably going to see some changes, just some adjustments as the year goes on, because again, McNeely hasn't been available for very many games. Yeah. So they have a lot to play around with there.
Hey, one final one, and this has to go back to Friday night against St. John's and the season that St. John's is having. What's the general discussion on the East Coast, because you're in Hartford, not very far outside of the city, but the emergence of Rick Pitino, the pros and the cons from the UConn perspective about St. John's having the year they're having under Pitino?
I mean, I think it's great for the Big East. I think it's great for college basketball. He's a very entertaining coach. When him and Hurley go up against each other and with other coaches in the league as well, it's always must watch. So I think everyone kind of is happy that St. John's is good. I think everyone kind of agrees that it's good for college basketball. Obviously, UConn fans, would like to still beat them, but they've played them tough. They've played them tough the last couple of years, even without their best teams. So yeah, I think it's overall it's a good thing to have St. John's back.
Yeah, fantastic, Joe. We appreciate it. Glad you're in town. Have a good one tonight, and we'll catch up later in the season. But thank you as always for your time.
Awesome, appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Joe.
It's Joe Arruda from the Hartford Courant.
That's great.
Beat writer for the Huskies. They have one of the larger Big East media corps.
Yeah.